Hey, sweet peeps, this is your host, Kendall Fisher. Thanks for tuning in, and I'm glad you did because on this episode of the NetSuite podcast, I sat down with Nicky Tozer, the Vice President of EMEA, that's EMEA, which stands for Europe, Middle East, and Africa. We discussed our native localizations across these areas, the goals and plans Nicky and her team have set forth to continue to successfully grow within them, and what all of this means for our customers.
You're listening to the NetSuite podcast, where we discuss what's happening within NetSuite, why we're doing it, and where we're heading in the future. We'll dive into the details about the software and the people at NetSuite who are behind all the moving parts. We'll also feature customer growth stories, discussing the ups and downs of running a company and how one integrated system can help your business continue to scale.
Before we get into our interview with Nicky, I want to quickly thank our sponsors over at Blue Microphones. The holiday seasons are right around the corner, and what's better than giving the gift of storytelling? Everyone has a story to tell, and Blue Microphones is known for their iconic Yeti microphone, which has helped millions of people find and amplify their voices to tell their story. So if you or someone you know is thinking about creating a podcast, check out Blue's new Yeti Caster, the complete mic and boom arm system ready to connect to your laptop, bringing the ultimate broadcast studio setup to your home, office, or really anywhere. That's what we use here at the Oracle NetSuite studios, and we're obsessed. So bring that same cheer to your loved ones this holiday season. Visit bluedesigns.com and use code PODCAST at checkout for a special price. Hi, Nicky. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the NetSuite podcast. From Germany, for our listeners who are tuning in, we're actually recording this in Frankfurt. And that's very exciting for a lot of reasons, which we'll get into later. But first, Nicky, I want our audience to get to know you a little more. Can you please tell us about your background, where you grew up, where you studied, and essentially kind of your path before NetSuite and before Oracle, which again, we'll get to in a bit.
Okay, sure. So I grew up in Surrey, which is just southwest of London. I went to school locally around there, but then I went to university in Kiel, which is in the Midlands in the UK, and I studied management science with French and German. And actually that meant that I went to the University of Gießen for 3 months, which is not too far from where we are today.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool.
Okay, so how do you go from management science into IT and technology sales?
Well, actually, I never really had an intention to do anything in IT. In fairness, I didn't really have a major ambition for anything other than to be ambitious and to keep growing. But after I finished university, I was a receptionist in an IT company for the summer holidays. And while I was there, they invited me to join what I guess now would be called a business development team, generating leads and opportunities for the sales team at that organization.
Wow. Well, it's a good thing that you love to grow and keep growing, as that is clearly our theme at NetSuite. Yeah. Speaking of, what was your career path before coming to NetSuite?
So I went from that BDR role. I was headhunted to set up an inside sales team for what was then Arbor Software. And Arbor Software got acquired by Hyperion, who got acquired by Oracle. And during that time, I went from the inside sales team to run that team, and then I went into a field sales role where I spent probably a total of 10 years then crafting my tasks and making sure that I grew the experience I needed for what was going to be the future.
Wow. And so when did you end up at Oracle? Because that was pre-NetSuite.
It was. So we got acquired, Hyperion got acquired in 2007, and I stayed within Hyperion in the Oracle fold for 5 years. So I left in 2012 to go to NetSuite.
So you've been at NetSuite now, I guess that's like 6 years.
Yeah.
How did you help lead NetSuite's European growth? What's been your role over those last 6 years?
So I went to NetSuite because I'd been selling a very mature product in a very mature market for most of my career. And I wanted to broaden my horizons a little bit and invest in what was going to be a new technology of the future. So I started at NetSuite as a sales rep. Again, I did that for 2 years. And then I went in to manage a sales team selling into the software and technology industry for 2 years. And then with the acquisition, we had this massive expansion into EMEA, and that was when I really picked up the role to grow into Northern Europe, which for us at the time was UK and Ireland, Benelux, and the Nordics regions. So that meant that I had to go and basically build 2 sales teams from scratch in the Nordics and the Benelux region, and that then created about, it was really 100% of the growth in Northern Europe at the time.
Wow, what an experience.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Well, that makes sense to how you got to the role that you're currently in, which is the Vice President of EMEA. And for our listeners, I know we've mentioned it before, but that is Europe, Middle East, and Africa. So as of July 1st, you are NetSuite's EMEA Vice President. Can you explain to our listeners what that means? What does the role entail?
So essentially, as we grow into those regions, we need a strategy as to how we're going to place our organisation across the regions, so people and offices, where we need to focus our attention in terms of which regions are suitable for which particular industries that we sell to, for example. So it's about really looking at where is our organisational growth going to come from, how do we drive revenue out of those regions, and how do we maintain customer satisfaction across all those regions as well.
So why right now? Why are we focused on this right now? Why did you become the Vice President of EMEA? I mean, we had one before you, but why now?
So the importance of this region right now really is that prior to Oracle's investment in NetSuite, we wouldn't have been able to do it at this speed. So it would have been a slower progression. So from a NetSuite perspective, the importance of it now is to really capitalize on the investment that Oracle have made so that we can ensure that we maintain our leadership position in ERP cloud.
Right.
That's from a NetSuite perspective. From a customer perspective, we're doing it because customers are also expanding. It's much easier now for customers to expand regionally than it ever has been before. So we're doing it because customers are doing it. We have to be able to support our customers in those regions.
That's because of the internet and that digitization of everything, essentially, right?
Exactly. It's really easy for customers for anybody to launch products and sell products, or launch services and sell services, because you don't have to have a physical presence in any of those countries to be able to break those international barriers.
Wow. So what are the goals you've set forth for NetSuite's continued growth across EMEA?
So this year it's 75% revenue growth. I don't expect that to change next year or the years after. It is also to continue with our customer satisfaction. It is to increase the channels by which we can sell to market. And by that I mean we have a direct sales team from NetSuite, but we also like to work with alliance partners who can help implement and give customers a choice of how we implement. But also then we have a series of solution provider channel partners who can work more locally with customers in regions where we might not be directly. So it's expanding those channels as well, and then localizing the product to make sure that customers who are native only to that country, can take advantage of NetSuite, and not just companies that are subsidiaries of larger organizations headquartered elsewhere. So those are the key goals, really.
Can you expand on how these goals directly affect our customers? For those customers that are tuning in right now, whether they're based in EMEA or whether they're based honestly in the States or in Canada or wherever, what does this mean for them?
So I think there's 2 sides really to it. One is a product-centric side and one is a service-centric side. So when you're talking to NetSuite, you want to talk to somebody in your own language, in your own country or city, or to a NetSuite partner in your own country or city that can talk to you in your own language. So this expansion means we have much more ability to provide that service for customers, which enables them to keep investing in NetSuite ultimately. From the other side of it, if we're localizing the product for those countries, then somebody who might be based in the USA, well, they might not care whether we can speak to them in German, but they do care that their German subsidiary can make use of a product that is localized for their country.
Right, that makes sense. And how has the Oracle acquisition bolstered that acting local mentality?
Largely, it's accelerated the rate at which we could expand into EMEA. So 2 years ago, we were in the UK, and now we're in all of these, we're representing NetSuite in all of these countries across EMEA.
Can you name some, just a few of them? You probably don't have them memorized, but
well, in let's say in EMEA directly, we are in the UK, we're in Sweden, we're in Finland, we're in Netherlands, we're in Belgium, we're in France, we're in Germany. We're moving into Spain, Portugal, and Italy this year, as well as Denmark and Norway. And then we have representation of a team in Dubai, who basically cover the 106 countries that make up Middle East and Africa.
Wow.
So the growth is mind-blowing.
Oh my gosh.
It's phenomenal, the recruitment that we've had to address to get people on board in all of those countries. But that we would never have been able to accelerate at that rate as NetSuite alone. With the investment from Oracle, not only from a product localization perspective, but making use of their infrastructure in all of those countries so we can have an office and people to help us recruit people and local language support, which as a company without that investment would be much slower and would take an awful lot more investment of time and money.
So for a customer who's been with NetSuite, let's say for, 5-6 years, maybe longer, they might be listening into this, and I've heard this firsthand saying, well, if they're expanding at this rapid pace, their attention isn't going to be put on me anymore. It's going to be on this excessive growth. What would you say to them if they were listening right now?
I think it's a really valid anxiety in a way, and I can imagine that they would be thinking that. In many ways, I think it's entirely the opposite, because we are not just putting sales teams in those locations, we're putting all of the supporting functions that any mature country would have. So we have a team of salespeople, yes, who are generating opportunities and then working with customers to evaluate NetSuite and hopefully end up selling it to them.
Right.
But they also need solution consultants to help the customer to evaluate the solution. And then you need people who are going to be able to help you implement it. You need marketing people who are going to make references for customers, which are good for customers as well as for NetSuite as a company. And they help to obviously generate brand awareness in the region. And the support for customers as well can then be in local language rather than having to ring up when they have a challenge and say in an English language rather than their own language, trying to explain what the challenge is and when they need it resolved, etc.
Right.
So actually, I can imagine that you would feel like our attention is focused on something different, but we have to come back to, at the end of the day, without our customers continually investing in NetSuite, we have nothing.
Right.
So we have to keep the customers at the heart of everything that we do.
Want to help save the planet? Here's an idea. Go nude. Unfortunately, not wearing clothes isn't realistic for most of us, but buying sustainable clothing is. Here's Gordon Seabury, CEO of Toad & Co.
Few know that garment production can generate tremendous pollution. So that's why we're hellbent on offering cleaner, sustainably made clothing that's stylish and long-lasting. But that's only half the battle at Toad & Co. When it comes to hitting our business goals, we've learned to focus on what we're good at and seek partners for other areas of expertise. So when it came to ensuring a consistent customer experience across all sales channels and knowing what was going on with all aspects of our business, we chose NetSuite by Oracle. They know business systems, we know eco-friendly clothes. A perfect match.
From accounting and finance to commerce and human resources, NetSuite is the #1 business system to help you simply manage your business. Right now, go to netsuite.com/toad to get your free guide, Crushing the 5 Barriers to Growth. That's netsuite.com/toad for your free guide and to hear Gordon bear all on Toad & Co.'s growth story.
Like we said before, we're currently in Germany and we're going to France in a few days. Let's stick with Germany for now. It's the biggest IT market in EMEA, but it's also a tough market for software companies to enter. What has NetSuite got to offer the market that others haven't? Obviously, we have lots of competitors, and one in particular that I won't name right now. But lots of competitors. What is NetSuite doing that's different?
So I think this is the same for NetSuite globally in whatever country or market we go into. I still maintain we are the only true cloud, proven, single integrated platform to run your business that exists today. Mm-hmm. There are several competitors out there, but there are very few that are proven to cover the amount of customer breadth that we have. And by that I mean vertical industries and I mean countries. They are very few that would even claim to be true cloud, and that has some real business impacts for people about how quickly they can get upgrades that are relevant and critical for their business compliance. And then there are very few that also have one single integrated platform. So maybe they're integrating their ERP with their CRM, whereas we have it all on one platform.
Right.
So to find a competitor that has all three of those factors in one product is a tough ask. So I still maintain that from that perspective, we have that to offer. We have, we've provided that for fast-growing international businesses. A third of the IPO companies last year went through their IPO on NetSuite. And that's just a real testament to the innovation that NetSuite's brought to the industry. Right. Most countries now are becoming really cloud ready, and they are all ready for a new kid on the block, and to take advantage of something that's built with future technology. So we're not trying to become a cloud company, we're investing in how we make an existing cloud solution better and more ready for all of these markets that we're entering.
Right. And we're also entering France, which is another major market, but also a difficult one for non-French software companies to make an impact. So why now, and what makes NetSuite different there?
Yeah, so I think why now, we go back to the message that, companies in those countries are investing in other regions as well. So we have to be able to support them. We also have to capitalise on our growth opportunity that Oracle has presented us with. And we have an opportunity now to localise the NetSuite solution to meet all of those requirements that those local countries have, to overcome the barriers to entry of those difficult markets by putting people on the ground in those countries that speak the language and the culture and can interact with people in that right way. But I think ultimately companies are becoming more international, regardless of whether you're a tiny provider. You probably buy from international suppliers. You probably want to think about selling over the internet to international companies in the future. And many of the existing solutions that exist in those countries today are very focused on the country that they're in, right, and don't allow that growth for those customers to go forward.
So if you could kind of wrap this sentiment up in a few sentences about what this means for our customers.
Yeah, so for our customers, it means they get to use a single integrated platform that's proven by 15,000 customers who already use it today across the globe, that is localized for their country, and that means it can support their growth, whether that's growth through acquisition, organic growth, whether it's growth through adding more products and services to their portfolio, or growth across international geographies. NetSuite is a platform that will enable them to do that.
Great. And what about our expansion into continued countries? You touched on this earlier, but Spain, Italy, Switzerland, Norway, Denmark, Middle East, etc. How will this growth continue to fuel that mission of helping our customers grow and expanding globally?
Yeah, so this is the next wave of growth for us, which we really started embarking on this year. And in order to stick a toe in the water as we build our presence and expand across the regions, we've actually put two, what we call them a hub team, but they're kind of inside sales teams that can use local partners or even actually travel themselves to go and sell into those regions as we localize the product where it needs to be localized, and as we gain more brand awareness and more opportunities in those regions. So, a large number of sales reps and supporting functions, again, based down in Malaga, and then another one based in London to sell into those Nordic regions.
How are we recruiting staff for these? I mean, I'm listening to you talk about this. And you're heading it all up. I mean, how do you do it? How are we recruiting?
Yeah, it's a phenomenal challenge, the recruitment, because, in NetSuite, we base a lot of our success on our culture. And we want to hire talent that is hungry, that will be accountable, that just wants to drive that success and has that enthusiasm to deliver. And they're the top of the game. And obviously we're hiring a lot of them in very competitive markets. So we have great recruitment teams across the region, but it does mean that you invest a lot of time in bringing the right people into your organization. But if you don't have the right people in your organisation, you don't have anything. Yeah. So really, it's worth the investment, but it is one of the biggest challenges, I would say, that we have on an ongoing basis.
Yeah. How are you? I mean, like you said, you are hiring the best of the recruiters, but what is it that we're doing to make sure that when we do put all this time and effort into it, that we're getting the top of talent and people that are going to stay and flourish? Like, is there a go-to characteristic you're looking for? How do you do it?
So I think it's really hard to articulate. It's quite intangible, but there is definitely a NetSuite DNA. And really, fundamentally, it's somebody who, we all work really hard at NetSuite. We're all working really hard towards a common goal. there's very few individuals in the organisation. Everybody works as a team, but we also like to have a bit of fun along the way. Mm-hmm. And usually if people feel like they're all invested and they have an opportunity for success and there's challenges every day and something new happening every day, that's usually a good culture to work in.
Right.
We also have a promote from within philosophy, so we like people to feel like they don't have to do this job here for 2 years, and when they've outgrown that, they've got to go and look for something else. I've been at NetSuite 6 years, and I've done three or four major different roles and ended where I am. So, we like people, we like to take NetSuite talent that we've nurtured because we've nurtured it in the way that we want them to be.
Right.
And also we then think they know how to invest that talent in the future of NetSuite. So I think that's, we get them in, we maintain them with the work hard, play hard mentality, and then they flourish because they believe that they're part of a common goal and they have a future in the business.
Right. And I actually wanted to speak to a little bit about your promotion within the company. It's particularly exciting. I talked to you about this earlier, but it's particularly exciting for someone like me to see a woman be put into this role. NetSuite is really, really moving towards equalizing the playing field and closing that gender gap. But what does it mean for you to be a female leader at NetSuite?
So if I'm honest, I obviously have been a female in the software market for 20 years.
Right.
And I've always been the only female in the room for the most part. And actually, through most of my career, I've never really considered my gender. I've just done the best I can do and tried to be better than the person sitting next to me, whether that's male or female. So thinking of myself as a person in business rather than actually letting anything either hold me back or drive me on because of my gender.
Love that.
However, I do really recognise, and lots of women and men actually in the organisation have come and talked to me about the fact that it's really inspirational just to see that it's possible for a woman to be in that position. And so, however I feel about it personally, it is really inspiring to hear them believe that actually it's given them more of a belief that they can get to the top of their game regardless of their gender.
Right.
And in terms of actually what we do internally to close that gender gap is there is an Oracle Women's Leadership Team which is designed to help women bring those kind of discussions that they feel they want to have to help them overcome whatever barriers they think they have. But actually, I'm more of a fan of a one-to-one mentorship program because sometimes when you create a group, you immediately put a badge on that's something that needs to be fixed. And it's not. It's about giving those individuals the belief that actually if you focus on what you want to achieve, you're much more likely to achieve it than worrying about the things that might hold you back.
Right.
So I tried to create a bit of an open door for myself and for the other women. There have been some really powerful women leaders in our organisation that the younger women can just go and say, hey, what did you do in this point to overcome any particular challenge? And I would say actually that goes for both men and women in the organisation. I just feel that we want to nurture talent regardless of gender or diversity so that people achieve the best they can achieve and feel that they've got to where they want to be.
And that's what we're doing. You literally just spoke to that as we continue to expand globally, we're hiring from within as well and promoting, clearly, no matter gender or race or background or any of that. For the customers that are tuning in right now, a lot of times we see, especially in financials, CFO is a male, controller is a female. What advice do you have for our customers that maybe don't have so much of an open, aren't working in such an open company as NetSuite? What advice do you have for them?
For me, really, it's just about looking at the ability of the individual, not about how you think society or culture expects it to be. I think part of the challenge is just that there aren't as many women to choose from in that kind of recruitment process.
Right.
But where there is a choice, often people will say that if a woman is in the role, they'll be more focused and more diligent and more aggressive in driving that role forward because they have to keep proving themselves.
Yeah.
I think times have moved on. Women can exist in groups of men and women. There doesn't have to be any kind of challenge around, oh, well, it's all men in the boardroom.
Right.
What if we bring a woman in? It's going to change the whole environment. Well, even if it does, it might actually be better.
Right.
But there's no reason why it needs to or why that should be a bad thing.
And if you're still thinking that way, there's more issues then.
Well, quite possibly. But, trying something new is not always a bad thing. I actually have a friend who's a female CFO, and she's striven for that all of her career, and she's achieved it. And actually, that where she's CFO, the team has completely transitioned and embraced some changes that they really needed to do to increase their growth.
Right.
There's obviously some cultural challenges around it, but I think if you just bring it back to the facts of how is this individual going to change my organisation for the better,
Right.
why does it matter
whether
what their gender is or what their diversity is?
Amen. I love this. However, as we talked about earlier, we are moving into some countries and markets that aren't as developed as we are in, the UK or in the United States. Do you foresee any challenges moving forward with that? Have you talked about that? Is that something that has been brought up in discussion upon being made VP of EMEA?
Actually, only really by me. The organ, and I think actually I've been really pleasantly surprised by some of the areas where I think they may not be very welcoming or even be uncertain how it's going to work, have actually surprised me the most and have been the most enthusiastic or the most. They don't really care. They're just like, right, okay, you're our VP, right, come on, what are we going to do?
Wow.
And that's, I think that's a really powerful message, that where you expect in some regions for it to be more challenging, they're over it.
Yeah.
So
wow.
It's been really pleasantly surprising in that respect, actually.
That just gave me the chills. I'm very excited. I'm very excited to hear that. And on that note, what can you tell our listeners, our prospects, customers, whoever's tuning into this right now, about the future of NetSuite and what we have to look forward to?
Well, I guess it's more growth in more countries and better localization of product for those countries. I'd love to say something more exciting than that, probably, but actually, we've made huge strides in the countries that we have moved into. We need to consolidate what we're doing in those countries and to make sure that we capitalise on the start that we've made there. And then obviously we're going into these other countries that we've started, the Spains and the Portugal and Italy and Norway, Denmark, and expand our footprint there. And then I think we also need to back that up with customer support that exists in the UK and increase that as the customers grow. But I fully anticipate with Oracle's investment and the fact that NetSuite keeps delivering on the targets that they give us, that there will be further expansion both in the countries we're already in, but also into perhaps more direct presence towards some of the more Central European countries that we're not currently directly in.
Awesome. Well, I am looking forward to it, and I can't wait to have you back on at some point in the future when we have, made that expansion into those countries that you've named before, and we'll look forward to it. Thank you so much, Nicky, for being on with us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
You heard her. We're continuing to expand our footprint and support in new cities near you. Make sure to keep a lookout for where we're heading next by following NetSuite EMEA. That's EMEA on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. Thank you so much to Nicky Tozer for joining us on this episode of the NetSuite podcast. We're looking forward to more from her in the future. Of course, none of this could happen without our sponsors, as well as our editors at Lampstand, and all you listeners for tuning in. Don't forget, rate, review, and subscribe. Au revoir.
You just listened to the NetSuite podcast. Be sure to tune in every week with more NetSuite developments, stories, and insights into the benefits of one integrated system to help you run your business.